Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by It's the B-Man 12, Have the Students Build It. I am a technology education teacher who always went above and beyond for my school, students, and administrators. I spent countless hours designing and building things for the schools. An example, signs, murals, wall art, games, etc. I really didn't mind because I enjoy the design challenges that go along with these builds. That was until I received a pink slip. For those of you who are not aware, a pink slip basically means that I may be losing my job the following school year. This really pissed me off because I had received great observations, became a role model for my students, and put in dozens of unpaid hours to create these side projects for the school. I had a meeting with my assistant superintendent who basically told me that she appreciated all of my hard work but didn't see much value in my program, and with budget cuts coming down the pike, I would most likely be losing my job. Now it needs to be mentioned that tech ed is not like the traditional shop classes of the 70s where students would build birdhouses and ashtrays. My curriculum focused primarily on STEM with heavily involved hands-on applications. I related otherwise dry material to awesome projects that all students enjoyed. Kids actually liked their schoolwork, and she knew it. It's also worth noting that both the valedictorian and salutatorian were both going to Ivy League colleges to pursue STEM degrees. Needless to say, I was beyond livid. The week following the meeting, my principal asked me if I was interested in building some new games for the cafeteria that students could play when they finished eating. Easy table games like mini knock hockey, checkerboards, etc. to alleviate students from getting out of control. I explained that I could not complete the project, and that was that. Until the assistant superintendent caught me in the hallway and told me, "Just have the students build it." So that is exactly what I did. I tasked my laziest and most unqualified students for a special project, the result of which was glorious. Checkerboards that didn't have any squares, knock hockey boards with splinters and uneven goals, laser-engraved puzzles that did not fit together. I thanked the students and asked the assistant superintendent to come on down to my lab because the students' projects were done and they were excited to show them off. In she walks and upon seeing the projects looks me dead in the eye. She now has a decision to make. 1. Ask me what the hell happened, or 2, tell the students to their faces what a great job they did. She opted for choice 2, going on and on about how great everything looks and how proud she was of the students, while I had the biggest smile on my face knowing how crappy they turned out. I thanked her for suggesting to have the students build it. As she left with essentially a pile of scrap wood, the projects never made it to the cafeteria. I resigned from that school and took a job that paid $12,000 more at a place where I was valued. They ended up keeping the position and begged me to stay on board. I realized resigning was my best option because I could get an early jump on all of the new openings as opposed to being let go at the end of summer, which would leave me with the worst schools that could not find a teacher. Let me ask you guys. For those of you that went to school in relatively recent years, maybe the last few decades, did any of you guys experience having these tech ed style classes, or was it always kind of a category that was downplayed or underfunded? When I went to school, I did have a tech ed style class, but even by that point, it was horribly outdated stuff. It was middle school for me, mid to late 2000s, and it was still using Windows 95 technologies. So let me know your experiences with tech ed in the comments down below. Our next story is by Jenny37. Won't leave me alone until I go to church with you? Fine, I'll go. When I was in my early 20s, I'm 38 now, I worked at a Pizza Hut in a relatively small town. There was another girl there, I'm female too, that was so over-Christianized it was stomach churning. I am satanic, not a devil worshiper, big difference. The moment she heard the word satanic, she went nuts. Every time we worked together, she harassed me nonstop through my entire shift about religion. It finally got to the point that I filed a formal complaint with the manager about her harassment, but that went nowhere. So then she upped her intolerance. She started demanding that I go to church with her. I tried to throw her off by telling her she had to go to a black mass with me first and receive a satanic baptism. She lost her crap on that. There was no black mass that I would take her to, I just wanted to shut her up. That didn't work. Finally, since the managers refused to do anything about the harassment, I made a deal with her that if I went with her one time, that she would never speak to me again unless it was work-related. She would never speak of religion again and leave me alone. She agreed. Here is the malicious compliance. She picked me up bright and early on a Sunday. She drove to her church and we both got out. As soon as she went in, I walked over to a friend's house. The next time she saw me at work, she was pissed. She went off on me saying I lied to her about going to church. I told her that I never lied. She reiterated that I did. I looked her in the eye and said, "You wanted me to go to church. You picked me up and drove me there. I got out of the car and left. You never specified a specific activity or length of time. I held up my end of the bargain. So unless you want to be outed as a two-faced liar, you will leave me the heck alone." She was so pissed off she was red in the face, but she knew she couldn't argue what I said because she knew I was right. She never bothered me again. I was known as an evil genius from then on in that town that you had to be very specific with. I still have that reputation to this day. This whole story can kind of be summarized with, well, she wasn't lying, and I guess really that's all you need. Our next story is by DoopleWrites. Do the work exactly how you want it done even though it's ridiculously wrong? Fine by me. Some background before we start. I worked as a drone pilot / mine surveyor for a man-child, using drones to take pictures of the mines, creating a 3D model out of those pictures, and then calculating all sorts of goodies for the clients like their gold yield and the amount of crap they have to move, etc. It's really technical and can easily go completely to crap if you don't know what you're doing, and even if you do know what you're doing, it can still very easily go to complete crap. I'm licensed and certified. I've been playing the game for a long freaking time now, and I know how it works most of the time. My ex-boss, on the other hand, didn't. See, he got his surveyor's license during the 80s by complete chance. He was a simple miner who just happened to be in the right place at the right time, getting a free university scholarship to become a surveyor because they had a few grants left over and called out who wanted it. His hand was one of the ones they picked. The second he got his license, he quit his job and convinced an old retiree surveyor to throw in his retirement, all cards on the table, to start up their own surveying business. He spent the entire time at the golf course and the bar, making a fat amount of cash out of his newly founded, self-milking cash cow. Not once did he carry out an actual survey. Heck, I doubt he's even stepped foot on a mine since then. He just invoiced the clients, told the retiree where to go, and collected a paycheck. So, time moves on, work slowly filters in, and as one does when they reach the ripe old age of 80-something, the retiree decides, screw this, and kicks the bucket. My boss's cash cow just died on him, and no matter how hard he squeezed the teats, the only thing coming out of it now was dust. The only other employee was this other guy who acted as his assistant and basically just carried heavy crap for him. He didn't have a backup. So, of course, he hired me. I was pretty fresh into the game at the time, starving and basically homeless, and in my eyes, this guardian angel just descended from the heavens and offered me a way out that doesn't involve an ungodly amount of Xanax and a short rope. He basically told me that we have to survey X site and get the data to X client. Didn't tell me how, didn't tell me what data exactly they want. Heck, he didn't even tell me when they needed it by. He just pointed to a place on Google, told me to go there and get it done. Somehow I freaking did it. By the skin of my left testy, I scraped by and eventually figured out just what the freak to do. At some point, we were kicked off the mine for reasons that my boss didn't disclose to me and had to open up our own offices. My boss graciously dug deep into his pockets, kicked out his eldest son, and dedicated that room in his house to our use. Now, I was spending every day with the man since if he wasn't at the golf course, he was at home. We started butting heads. He had this illusion in his head of how things work and how you're supposed to do things, and I had practical experience and qualifications to tell me otherwise. Every single day was a fight, and every single day he'd tell me how he wanted it to be done, and I'd just turn around and do it the way it's meant to be done. I started passing out my CV like herpes at a frat party. My timing was perfect though, cause a little blip in the crash of the 2020 job economy happened right as I started searching. The interviews I had lined up all got canceled. The people who I already interviewed with and who seemed ecstatic to have me suddenly didn't answer my calls. I felt like a scorned lover waiting on the curb in the rain, underwear clinging to my butt cheeks and my socks soaking wet. I was considering maybe going back to IT or, even better, prostitution. I could maybe make $1 each, and thanks to a well-used childhood spent chewing gum, I knew I had the jaw muscles for it. I felt freaking hopeless and dejected, doomed to a life of taking care of a disgusting man-child and his fat wallet. Eventually though, a second angel descended from the heavens, once again saving me from that seductive little noose. I checked her wings for wires and asked her to do an STD check before we carried on, and she checked out. Finally, I could freaking leave this place. I was waiting on the contract, not really wanting to commit to anything without it being in writing, when my boss and I got into another massive screaming fight. After hour 3, something inside me snapped. You want it done your way? Freaking fine. I'll do it your way. I committed freaking hard to following his procedure every step of the way. Surveys were taking 3 times longer to do. The drone crashed 4 times. My first ever crash, and all of them were near write-offs. The 3D models stopped looking like mines and started resembling potato chips and Twizzlers. He had clients calling him day and night, non-stop asking him just what the freak he is doing. Eventually, he gave my number to them so they can call me directly, and I started getting calls day and night non-stop until I just turned off my phone outside of office hours. Clients were threatening to drop the contracts. Clients were threatening to sue. My contract came in from my new company, and I signed the dotted line with a smile on my face. One client stopped calling and stopped paying. Word got out, as it always does, that his company is just some redneck hoo-ha being run out of someone's home. Another client canceled the contract completely and threatened legal action. I handed in my resignation. My boss looked at me pleadingly, offering me a freak ton of cash to stay. If cocaine could make you even feel half as good as I felt then, sign me up. I told him to get freaked. He begged me to write him a manual on how to do the work, to show him how to process the data, to fly the pits, to set up the instruments. I spent the last 2 weeks there writing out every procedure he ever told me I needed to follow, sent it through to him, and walked away. A few weeks later, when he was scheduled to do a survey, I was suddenly spammed with calls and emails and messages from him asking me how to do this or to fly that or where to find this data. His manual wasn't working. Surprise, surprise. I don't know, just read the manual. My new company is currently picking up all the contracts he's dropped. If we manage to get the last one, I'm gonna ask them for a bonus. It started out being a great thing for OP because they basically got up off the street and actually got a job that they could do, but they very quickly pulled that veil back and realized that the job they thought was a savior really is just taking advantage of them. So good on OP for being able to get out of there and get an even better job. Our next story is by Vlad666, New rules must be followed. Okay, but you aren't going to like the result. The last 10 years before my retirement, I spent in retail, working for a quasi-state agency in a state where liquor is sold and controlled by the state. No private liquor stores. The leadership gets a new director, and the first thing he does is puts out a new rule. All timesheets must be filled out at the time the incident happens. Come in at 7 a.m. for a truck, have to sign in at 7. Before you can go to work, take lunch at 12 noon, have to sign out then sign in at 12:30, shift ends at 3 p.m., have to sign out at 3 p.m. Having been there a decade, I pointed out that this would cause more trouble than it was worth. But the powers that be demanded we follow the new procedure. Prior to this, if you came in 5 minutes early and started work, you could leave 5 minutes early as long as the shift was manned. Got a flat tire? Call and tell us you'll be half an hour late. Work an extra half an hour at the end of your shift and everyone is happy. But not now. I'm an evil jerk when crossed and love malicious compliance, so I follow the program to the letter. I'm scheduled to leave at 3 p.m. I excuse myself from the customer I'm helping and head to the office, sign out at exactly 3 p.m., and head for the door. More than one angry customer ripped the managers a new one over me walking away and leaving. The next day, the GM was going nuts on the assistant managers. It seemed they'd taken my advice and the district manager had called the GM, and ripping him was in fact protecting them. They were dubious. I told them not to ask the GM, he wasn't here at the time. Write me up. I refused to sign. Fax it to the district manager. The next day, the GM was going nuts on the assistant managers. It seemed they'd taken my advice and the district manager had called the GM and ripped him a new one. He was furious because I was following the rules and we butted heads before, and he knew I wouldn't hesitate to file a grievance with the union and he'd get his butt handed to him. The GM was shaking his head and asked me why I was busting his chops. I like the guy, but as I told him, I'm getting tired of 100 people in the food chain making rules and then changing them every other day. It didn't take too long for word of my malicious compliance to spread, and the HQ was not pleased when the complaints started coming in from customers. They first tried to say that I was reading too much into the new rule. I pointed out that I'd been written up for being 2 minutes late when the road in front of the shopping center we were located in was closed due to a car fire. My question was, I can be disciplined for being 2 minutes late, but working 5 minutes over was okay? They immediately said I'd be paid OT for the extra time. I said I didn't need the OT and was happily working 7.5 hours a day and did not want to work more than I was required to. If your boss, your managers, or whoever else are going to be sticklers for you making sure you get there and start on time, then I don't see why it's a problem if you're a stickler for making sure you leave on time. I really just don't think it's that big a deal if something pops up and you're 2 to 5 minutes late to your retail job. And our final story of the day is by imageofloki. Want me to respond to all your emails? Okay. So I am a teacher. This year is an interesting one, as we can all assume. And I have a very engaged parent. I am all about that. I rather enjoy communication with parents. This parent has a habit of using email like text. In the same email chain, she will type out a sentence or two and send. Then another sentence or two and send. This past week, it was a 5-minute period, sending me an email every 30 seconds. I waited for the emails to stop, read them all, and responded once. Usually ignoring the emails where she is correcting her spelling in a previous email. She called the school saying I wasn't responding to all her emails or quick enough. I explained to my administrator what the situation was, and he said that this parent needs reassurance, so do my best. Friday, I got another flurry of emails, so to avoid not responding to all her emails, I did just that. Responded to them all as they came in. Yesterday, Monday, I got a few emails. I answered them all. It slowed down a great deal. Her emails were getting longer, so not a hard flurry of emails. Today, she sent another email about wanting to set up a meeting, because as much as I give extended time to turn in assignments and as much time as needed on tests, give rubrics, written and spoken assignments, have the students repeat it back to me, answer all questions, it isn't enough. The parent was trying to use the meeting as a threat. So when I responded, I said a meeting would be a fantastic idea, and I attached the student's guidance counselor to the email chain. I got another email where she was mad because now she had to follow through with it. I responded saying all emails will have the guidance counselor attached in my reply from now on. You can't really blame them too much when they send all these replies because it's just kind of like ineptitude of how to handle themselves on email. You know, they're probably just not that familiar with it. But the whole second half where they started trying to kind of threaten you with a meeting, I don't see why that's really a problem for the teacher. Okay, sure, let's have the meeting, come on over. I really don't think that was ever going to work in favor for the parent. Why would a teacher be scared of having a meeting? Isn't that what teachers do all the time? I don't know. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So which of these stories was your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing and turn notifications on if you haven't so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Any little thing that you do helps the channel grow so much more. Whether it's commenting, subscribing, or just watching the video, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time right here on the Storytime channel.